How's it going? I'm Ryan. Today I'm going to go over the two trades that I took on NQ. Both were losers, had a losing day today. First trade was a loser because I should have been paying attention more to the macro or the higher time frame. Second trade was a loser because I had my stop too tight. We'll get into both of those trades in just a second. We're looking at the daily time frame here, and this is something that I probably should have done coming into the day to prepare myself. Because you can see that the low of day here was right around this area that we had this most recent high, right? So we had this swing high, pull back, create a new high, pull back into this, previous resistance turn support, and got that low a day there. And the reason I'm pointing that out, you'll see in just a second. So this is what that looks like on the hourly time frame. You can see that we had this swing high here. This was the previous all-time high, broke through that, got a pullback into this area and ripped from there. And that was something that I had this zone marked. I had the pre-market low marked, and I think I just failed to recognize the significance of this area in terms of, in an uptrend. When I'm looking at, say, a 5-minute chart, I'm watching for, a break of high a day, pull back and retest that high a day for continuation. That's a setup that I watch on an uptrending day. And when it happens on a larger time frame, that's something to be aware of, and I was not. And I took a losing trade because of it. But we can get into that. We can talk about why that happened. Few things I was watching. So I had that zone here. I had that pre-market low. I had yesterday's low a day. I had the pre-market high, and I had yesterday's high, that all-time high, as well as this resistance that we had from the all-time high to the pre-market high, and kind of extended through today's price action. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the first trade that I took, and why it was a mistake. So also something that I'm realizing is, and I'll go back and kind of go over this, but on the hourly time frame, I noticed that when I was trading SPY or QQQ, those whole numbers, say, 450, 500, 520, those big whole numbers usually acted as magnets or targets, resistance or support. And I realized that on NQ at least, it kind of these increments of 100. So you see that this is 18,500, touch that to the cent before getting a massive move out of there. And you can see that if I pull this up, that 18,500 right here, right? So that was the previous all-time high. That was also the low a day before we got a big bounce. And just likewise, you can see how these, here's 18,300, and you can see rejection in here, break above that and it rips. You can see, at this level right here, 18,200, big area of support here, resistance once it breaks below it, support in the pre-market, resistance in the pre-market, etc. And you can kind of just go through and see those increments of 100 I've noticed have been big levels. You can just go back and just look at that. It makes sense, right? If you're setting orders, those whole numbers make sense. So that's another thing that I'm kind of paying attention to today as well. We had that nice big whole number, that increment of 100, previous all-time high. I should have been paying more attention. I got caught in the smaller time frame. I have a tendency to do that, and I'm going to really try to work to break that tendency because it's bad. It gets me caught in just minor movements on the 5-minute chart, and I just ignore, the fact that we're retesting a previous all-time high. So that's enough yapping. Let's get into the first trade. The first trade that I took was puts right here, and you might wonder, why would you do that? It looks pretty bullish. Well, in the moment, it didn't. We were weak. We had this bottom here where we found support, kind of got a bounce, sold through that on high volume, made a new low. On the new low, we retested that previous low day, right? That was the low day, wicked off that, created a new low. And on this candle, and I'll zoom into the 1 minute chart as well, we had some lower volume green candles pushing back up into this area. We also had the 9 EMA right in this area as well on the 5 minute. I can throw that on there just to show. So it got adjusted obviously from this push up, but at the time being, you see it was sloping downwards and it was kind of right in this area as we were retesting it. So I took a single put here. I was targeting low a day. That was a 20-point target, so I took it right around 18,520, targeting that low day at 18,500. So I risked about $15. I'll remove this EMA and we'll take a look at where my stop loss was and where my target was. Wrong button there. Take a look. So my stop was above this swing high here. And my entry was right in this area, right around 18,520. So I had about a 10 point, or excuse me, about a 5 point, it was a little over, I think it was like a 7 point stop. And my target was, like I said, low a day. So risked about $15. I think I took a $16 loss on this with all things considered, contract fees, getting in, getting out. Risking about 15 bucks for a $40 profit potentially. The risk to reward was there in terms of where I set my stop, where I had my entry. You can see in the 1 minute chart, we had this support here, broke through it on pretty big volume. We're wicking off of this area again. And then we had decreasing volume here. This candle really pushed through. A lot of that volume came after I got stopped out. Well, in the process of getting stopped out, I should say. But I think the risk to reward was there in terms of having, about a little like 2.5 to 1 risk to reward. However, just the idea was incorrect. And I'm going to pull this up. I'm just going to hammer it into my own head. Sorry if it's redundant. The idea was stupid because I was looking for continuation down. Because why? We were below yesterday's low a day. We were below the 9 EMA. It seemed to me that we were, for the day, weak. But had I zoomed out and looked at the grand picture, right? We've been in an uptrend. The market's bullish. We've been setting new all-time highs. We just set a new all-time high the prior day, and we were pulling back to the previous all-time high. That's a beautiful setup for continuation up to bullish continuation. So just didn't keep my eyes open to the grand scheme of things, and now that I look back, it's extremely obvious. And so, like I said, I'm gonna try to do my due diligence and hammer that home to pay a little bit more attention to those higher time frame and price action. Keep that all in mind. I got too caught up in the daily price action, being that we were making lower lows. And yeah, it got me. So that was my first trade. That was my first trade. That was my reasoning. That was my failure to recognize what was happening on a bigger time frame, right? And if you see us come down, and we also have these wicks in this area that we bounced from. We had that pre-market low. We didn't quite get to that, but we had that pre-market low, and you see that move out of there, from 18,500 up to 18,550 or so. So 50-point swing out of that area. That's pretty solid. If you caught just one piece of that back up towards like the resistance that we had in the morning, it's a really nice move. That's a really nice trade. With that being said, that was my first trade, and that was a mistake that I made. That was my reason for taking it, and also my reason for why it wasn't a good trade in the end. My second trade that I took was calls here, and I got stopped out by like a half of a point. And this was just due to my stop loss being too tight. So once again, I'm going to throw on that EMA. All right. And also, I will say that this would have been a decent opportunity as well, right? Because we formed a double bottom. You see on the 5-minute chart, we failed to make a lower low. We were getting wicks down into that area, that previous all-time high area. Another excellent place to potentially take, looking for a bounce. And you have a precedent, right? You could set your stop below this wick, so that if we do create a new low on the day, that your trade's invalidated potentially. But while we are holding above the low a day, failing to create a new low and showing that we have some buyers in this area, could have been a good opportunity. I think, like I said, I was getting too caught up in like the 9 EMA. Oh, we're below the 9 EMA. I just need to look at a higher time frame because that matters much more. So the second trade that I took was calls here. So after we came up and pulled back into this area, I took calls. My stop was below this wick here, and I was targeting this yesterday's low. So I was risking about, I had an $8 stop loss, looking for a 10-point move, so $20, so about a 2-to-1 again. That stop was pretty tight, and the reason why it was tight is because I already had a losing trade. I know that. That's exactly why I did it. But you can see on the 1-minute chart, we'll remove that real quick. You see on the 1-minute chart kind of what I was looking at, right? We came down, we pulled back, we formed these two 1-minute candles back to back. You see increasing volume on this green hammer. I entered here when we kind of pulled back and retested this area. So I entered, got a pretty good entry, but my stop loss was below that wick right there. So you can see that it was about 18,537 or so was where my stop was, and we wicked below that by about a point. So should have given it a bit more time to breathe. I think maybe setting it at this whole number, this 18,535 or so where we bounced before, could have been valid, and that would have kept me out. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Hindsight 2020, I say it all the time. But I set my stop below this wick and got stopped out by 1 point before we came up and hit my target. So that was just more of a quick scalp because I had a small loss earlier in the day, and I was just looking for essentially a scalp to get it back because it was a small loss. I knew that if I just got like a 10-point trade that I would be up for the day. Not the best mindset to have, but had I not been so stingy on my stop loss, that would have worked out as well. That's it. That's the only 2 trades I took on the day. NQ is moving a bit better than ES. Like you can see, we had that resistance. ES broke out and got a really big move to the upside after that. That happened later in the day. That was a really nice move. ES, we'll take a look at that. We had the same thing, right? Resistance from all-time high to pre-market high continued. We kind of got up in that area and rejected, setting that high a day today on ES. But ES was definitely weaker during the morning when I was trading. So did not take any trades there. That's all I got. I'll be back next week. I'm gonna take some time this weekend to just clear my charts, start on a higher time frame. I might even look to remove the 9 EMA for a while, and just really try to focus on things such as higher time frame levels, price action on a higher time frame, and trade off that. And same strategies, looking for the same things, but I think maybe just getting caught up on those smaller time frames as I oftentimes do. So we'll see. We'll come back next week. Good thing is, follow stop loss, take the stop and just accept it and move on. So neither of the stops or the losses were very big. So we move on. One good trade will put me back in profit. So if I'm doing anything right, at least it's small losses. All right. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. I trade live Monday through Friday. I'll be here next week. Looking to right this ship. Peace out.